We erroneously label this phenomenon progress, when in fact, it is merely acceleration, a reckless race forward along the same fractured, well-trodden road that history has so plainly paved for us many times before. Yet, herein lies a crucial paradox. Collapse is not merely an act of pure destruction. It is, fundamentally, a powerful catalyst for transformation. When Rome eventually fell, it did not vanish into thin air overnight. Instead, it evolved. Its enduring laws, its pervasive language, and its majestic architecture all profoundly outlived the empire itself, shaping subsequent civilizations. Perhaps this is precisely where we find ourselves now, not at the definitive end of money as a concept, but rather at the precipice of something entirely new. A fundamental reset, a profound return to intrinsic meaning, and a necessary reckoning with the undeniable truth that true value cannot be endlessly manufactured, nor can genuine trust ever be simply printed. The pertinent question, therefore, is not if our burgeoning digital empire will eventually fall, but rather what will ultimately rise in its wake. We often flatter ourselves, believing we are the ultimate masters of innovation. However, history itself is the true, relentless innovator. It perpetually unearths new tools, invents new currencies, devises new systems, and subjects them all to the exact same, unforgiving crucible of testing. Yet, every number flickering on a screen, every balance displayed within an app, every asset supposedly backed by a governmental promise, all depend precariously on one incredibly fragile element, faith. And history, with its unforgiving gaze, has consistently demonstrated little kindness towards faith unanchored in tangible reality. We have witnessed this immutable pattern unfold countless times before. It typically commences with innovation, a revolutionary breakthrough that fundamentally reshapes the existing order. This is then succeeded by a period of expansive growth, often heralded as a golden age. Inevitably, this gives way to corruption, characterized by expedient shortcuts, unrestrained currency printing, and the propagation of illusion, culminating ultimately in collapse. Crucially, this downfall is not typically wrought by external attack, but rather by internal excess. Rome did not truly fall when barbarian hordes stormed its formidable gates, but when its very money lost all inherent meaning. The British Empire did not crumble from foreign invasion, but slowly from the overwhelming weight of its accumulated debt. This implies that every single transaction can potentially be traced, capped, reversed, or even outright denied. Imagine a future system where government-issued stimulus payments automatically expire after a mere 30 days, or where your spending habits can be meticulously restricted by specific categories. Envision a scenario where your very access to money is contingent upon your social score, your carbon footprint, or your unwavering compliance with official policy directives. This isn't some far-flung dystopian fantasy. It is already being rigorously tested across China, in various European nations, and will soon inevitably reach the West. Ancient Rome deployed legions to enforce its imperial will. The governments of tomorrow will wield software. The more digital money becomes, the more its inherent freedom diminishes. For once money transforms entirely into code, then freedom itself regrettably devolves into mere permission. Empires, it is a critical historical lesson, never succumb to instantaneous, cataclysmic collapse. Instead, their decline is a gradual process, often invisible, unfolding slowly and bureaucratically. Their populations, with remarkable adaptability, adjust to each new restriction, each seemingly temporary measure, until pervasive control eventually calcifies into an accepted cultural norm. The citizens of Rome, for instance, largely failed to grasp that they were actively living through the demise of their colossal empire. Their bustling markets continued to open, their vibrant cities still functioned, and their coins, though increasingly debased, continued to circulate, until, quite abruptly, one day they no longer did. While politicians engaged in the usual finger-pointing, the undeniable, silent reality remained. Every empire throughout history has, when faced with similar predicaments, resorted to identical measures. When irrevocably cornered by mounting debt, they do not merely default on their paper obligations. They default, far more profoundly, on the inherent value of their currency. Much like emperors of antiquity, Modern leaders often harbor the conviction that they can outmaneuver history itself. When economies falter, they reduce interest rates. When financial markets tremble, they resort to printing more money. When the populace descends into panic, they offer reassuring promises. However, every such promise inadvertently cultivates dependency. Every financial bailout, while seemingly necessary, ultimately breeds systemic fragility. Every rescue operation fundamentally undermines the fiscal discipline that once endowed money with genuine meaning. And in our current digital age, this entire process is alarmingly accelerated. A solitary decision made by a central banker can now instantaneously shift trillions. A single, unforeseen technical glitch has the potential to wipe out billions. What most of us rarely pause to consider, however, is the profound consequence when that intricate web of trust inevitably unravels. Rome possessed its silver, we now possess digital code. Both, in their respective eras, were regarded as fundamentally unbreakable. Their strength, however, derived solely from the collective belief invested in them. When the global pandemic struck in 2020, the world was confronted with a crisis that rigorously tested every conceivable system: political, medical, and, most profoundly, financial. Factories shuttered, national borders abruptly froze, and entire economies effectively ground to a halt overnight. And what was the immediate, collective response of our global leaders? They conjured money into existence, trillions of units, with a mere few clicks of a keyboard. Whereas it took the Roman Empire centuries to systematically destroy the integrity of its coinage, we accomplished a similar feat digitally in a matter of months. Governments labeled these actions stimulus, central banks termed them support. But the underlying truth was far simpler and starker. We were effectively printing belief, not genuine wealth. Predictably, inflation ensued, initially denied, then subtly redefined, and ultimately, grudgingly accepted. Yet, inflation is far more than just a phenomenon of escalating prices. It signifies shrinking value, a stealthy theft of purchasing power that disproportionately penalizes savers while inadvertently rewarding debtors. Governments were now empowered to print, borrow, and spend seemingly without constraint. Central banks, in effect, ascended to the status of new emperors, generating wealth not from precious metals, but through mere keystrokes in their digital ledgers. For several decades, this paradigm appeared to function, or at least it maintained a convincing illusion of stability. However, the veneer of endless prosperity inevitably fractures. It crumbled in Rome, it shattered in Weimar Germany, and it is visibly cracking once more today, though not in the form of debased coins or inflated paper, but within the intricate fabric of digital code. Money has always been intrinsically linked to the evolution of power structures. When Europe transitioned from absolute monarchs to parliamentary governance, weighty gold coins ceded their primacy to government-backed banknotes. As industrialization surged, banks emerged as the primary engines driving national economies. And now, as data asserts itself as the defining new frontier, money itself is undergoing a radical metamorphosis, becoming entirely digital, utterly detached from both paper and any physical reality. Today, we have unequivocally entered a new era, the digital empire. Money no longer possesses the reassuring jingle in our pockets or the tactile feel when folded in our wallets. Instead, it flickers as ephemeral data on screens, intangible, invisible, and instantaneously transferable. Every payment, every trade, every single debt is now interwoven into a vast, intricate digital web. On the surface, it feels undeniably modern, remarkably efficient, and seemingly secure. Yet, beneath the alluring glow of our screens, an age-old peril has resurfaced with renewed potency, an overriding dependency on trust. We implicitly trust banks to safeguard our digital holdings. We trust governments to uphold their value, and we trust complex algorithms to protect its integrity. Armies swell in size, borders are perpetually stretched, and operational costs invariably explode. When the coffers, replenished by taxation, can no longer meet these escalating demands, rulers, with alarming predictability, resort to the same dangerous shortcut, the debasement of currency. Rome initiated this decline by systematically melting down its silver coins, adulterating them with cheaper, base metals, all while maintaining a facade that nothing had fundamentally altered. Initially, the subtle deception went largely unnoticed, but inevitably, widespread awareness dawned. And with that realization, the bedrock of public trust fractured. Prices skyrocketed. Soldiers, observing their diminishing purchasing power, clamored for higher wages, and vital trade routes ground to a halt. The world's most powerful economy, an empire forged upon the integrity of its metal currency, now witnessed that very metal losing its inherent soul. As money lost its intrinsic meaning, Rome's mighty edifice began its slow, inevitable decay from within. Centuries after Rome's decline, humanity transitioned from silver to paper, embracing gold-backed notes that ostensibly represented actual metal stored securely in vaults. Crucially, however, the underlying game remained unchanged. Every burgeoning empire, from Spain's formidable silver fleets to the global dominance of Britain's pound sterling, eventually succumbed to the same perilous stratagem, creating more promises than could ever realistically be honored. In 1971, the United States formally codified this shift when President Nixon unilaterally severed the dollar's convertibility to gold. This pivotal moment is often described as the night real money died, giving way to an era of purely faith-based currency. For the very first time in recorded history, the entire global economic system began to function not on any tangible substance, but solely on collective trust. We often believe we've surpassed history, outgrown its cyclical patterns. But what if, instead, we are merely reenacting it, albeit with a modern twist? This time, the medium is pixels rather than physical coins. Ancient Rome systematically debased its silver currency. Today, we are rapidly digitizing our currencies. The outcome, eerily similar to past collapses, may unfold with unprecedented speed. History, as often observed, rarely repeats itself verbatim. Rather, it echoes, rhyming in recurring patterns defined by power dynamics, societal trust, and the very nature of money. Currently, we find ourselves immersed in a transformative revolution so profound that future historians will undoubtedly chronicle it with the same gravity we now accord to the fall of the Roman Empire. Yet, this iteration lacks the spectacle of marching legions or burning cities. Its force lies in data, countless lines of code steadily supplanting the tangible value once held in gold coins. This is the dawn of the digital money revolution, presenting, in effect, Rome's ancient decline unfolding before our very eyes, in real time. For millennia, the essence of money transcended mere paper or abstract code. It embodied tangible trust, a trust one could literally feel. Every system constructed solely upon the fragile foundation of trust will, eventually, demand its inevitable reckoning. When that pivotal moment arrives, when fleeting pixels lose their purported power and trust inexorably devolves into widespread doubt, those who possess tangible, real value, real assets, and a genuine understanding of these principles will be the ones who ultimately endure. And those who cling to the illusion will simply watch it dissolve, just as the citizens of Rome once did, holding coins that had been stripped of all their former meaning. We are not merely passive spectators of history. Rather, we are actively living within it, typing, trading, and transacting our lives inside its unfolding narrative every single day. The impending collapse, unlike those of antiquity, will not manifest with the dramatic spectacle of fire and destruction. Instead, it will arrive silently, perhaps with a login screen that suddenly displays the chilling message, "Access denied." This, tragically, is the contemporary manner in which empires now conclude, quietly, digitally, and on a global scale. Yet, we are not predestined to be its helpless victims. History's profound lessons are readily available for anyone with the foresight and willingness to truly see them. This is not about succumbing to fear. It is about cultivating profound awareness. It is about remembering a fundamental truth. Money is not some mystical force. It is, at its core, trust.